Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Vishvam Sabharajikjaya. Sto Devamrita Swami Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Vishvam Sabharajikjaya. Sto Devamrita Swami Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki. Go Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 32, Text 41 and 42. Śraddadhānāya bhaktāya vinītāyānasūyave, bhūteṣu kṛta-maitrāya, śuśrūṣābhiratāya ca, śraddadhānāya bhaktāya, vinītāyānasūyave, bhūteṣu kṛta-maitrāya, śuśrūṣābhiratāya ca, śraddadhānāya bhaktāya, vinītāyānasūyave, bhūteṣu kṛta-maitrāya, śuśrūṣābhiratāya ca. Vaishnavis. Śraddadhānāya, faithful, bhaktāya, to the devotee, vinītāya, respectful, anasūyave, nonenvious, bhūteṣu, to all living entities, kṛta-maitrāya, friendly, śuśrūṣā, faithful service, abhiratāya, eager to render, cha, and translation. Instruction should be given to the faithful devotee who is respectful to the spiritual master, non-envious, friendly to all kinds of living entities, and eager to render service with faith and sincerity. Next verse. Bahir-jāta-virāgāya, śānta-cittāya dīyatām, nirmatsarāya, śucaye, yasyahaṁ, preyasāṁ, priyaḥ. This instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. Purport. In the beginning, no one can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional service. Here, bhakta means one who does not hesitate to accept the reformatory processes for becoming a bhakta. In order to become a devotee of the Lord, one has to accept a spiritual master and inquire from him how to progress in devotional service. To serve a devotee, to chant the holy name according to a certain counting method, to worship the deity, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from a realized person, and to live in a sacred place where devotional service is not disturbed, are the first out of 64 devotional activities for making progress in devotional service. One who has accepted these 5 chief activities is called a devotee. One must be prepared to offer the necessary respect and honor to the spiritual master. He should not be unnecessarily envious of his god brothers. Rather, if a god brother is more enlightened and advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should accept him as almost equal to the spiritual master, and one should be happy to see such god brothers advance in Krishna consciousness. A devotee should always be very kind to the general public in instructing Krishna consciousness, because that is the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. That is really humanitarian work, for it is the way to show mercy to other people who need it very badly. The word śuśrūṣābhiratāya indicates a person who faithfully engages in serving the spiritual master. One should give personal service and all kinds of comforts to the spiritual master. A devotee who does so is also a bona fide candidate for taking this instruction. The word bahir-jāta-virāgāya means a person who has developed detachment from external and internal material propensities. Not only is he detached from activities which are not connected to Krishna consciousness, but he should be internally averse to the material way of life. Such a person must be nonenvious and should think of the welfare of all living entities, not only of the human beings, but living entities other than human beings. The word śucaye means one who is cleansed both externally and internally. To become actually cleansed externally and internally, one should chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna or Vishnu, constantly. The word dīyatām means that knowledge of Krishna consciousness should be offered by the spiritual master. The spiritual master must not accept a disciple who is not qualified. He should not be professional and should not accept disciples for monetary gains. The bona fide spiritual master must see the bona fide qualities of a person whom he is going to initiate. An unworthy person should not be initiated. The spiritual master should train his disciple in such a way that in the future only the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be the dearmost goal of his life. In these 2 verses, the qualities of a devotee are fully explained. One who has actually developed all the qualities listed in these verses is already elevated to the post of a devotee. If one has not developed all these qualities, he still has to fulfill these conditions in order to become a perfect devotee. Translation again. This instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana-anjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We've had some verses explaining who not to speak these transcendental instructions to by Lord Kapila Dev. And we have verses now, 2 verses especially, which are focusing on who is qualified to hear these transcendental instructions. In both verses, the positive verses, you hear about the quality of being non-envious. 2 verses in a row, it's repeated. Why is that? Envy is the main driver of material existence. So who do you think you could be envious of? People don't really like to think that they're envious, even when they're wishing ill to someone. They like to think, well, that person should suffer. That's just the way it is. I like how Srila Prabhupada explained that you only envy someone who has something better or doing something better. So in that way, he explained, envy is indirect appreciation. So why not just directly appreciate? You should always think like that when you encounter situations in which you want to minimize someone, even drag them down in your mind or in day-to-day affairs. This person is doing something better than me. This person has something better than me. Let me appreciate. And your life will go from dark clouds to sunny. And the more you express appreciation and gratitude in bhakti, the more open your consciousness is. Envy and minimization of others makes your consciousness very restricted and narrow. But as soon as you get into the habit of glorifying others, appreciating others, you feel your whole consciousness expands. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, Ichcha dvesha subhuttena dvandva mohena bharata. All living entities appear in this material existence with 2 problems, Ichcha and dvesha. They are attached and they are averse. So what exactly are they attached to? This is the psychology of the conditioned soul, by the way. They are attached to imitating Krishna. And what are they averse to? They are averse to following the instructions of Krishna. So why should we envy Krishna? Subconsciously, we may think we're free of envy. But the root cause of our material existence is indeed envy of Krishna. Because Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And in how many lifetimes does it take for us to assimilate the point that we can only be indirect enjoyers? We cannot be direct enjoyers. But the whole material energy is pushing on you to be the direct enjoyer. And the bhakti shakti, the energy of bhakti, is pushing you to focus on Krishna's pleasure. Contribute to Krishna's pleasure. Subconsciously, we think, well, Krishna is already full of pleasure. He's the reservoir of pleasure. What about me? We always analyze ourselves as separate from Krishna, especially when it comes to the critical pursuit of material enjoyment. Why do we do that? Envy is also about not accepting the full transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We don't have that full conviction that Krishna is, his name, form, qualities, and pastimes are beyond the grip of the illusory energy. Because we don't have that full conviction, we don't want to acknowledge that everything will be fine with me if I simply serve Krishna's pleasure. Because subconsciously we're thinking, or we're doubting, well, Krishna, he's nice, but I got to look out for myself. We don't appreciate the full transcendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore we take shelter of our material senses and material consciousness, while sometimes praying to God, oh God, give us pleasure. Oh God, stop our suffering. This is generally religion as ordinarily known by people. That the purpose of, first of all, people think they're very religious just to acknowledge the existence of God. Oh, I'm a believer. My life is successful. I'm a believer. And then once you have that pride in accepting the existence of God, then what's the next step? He is my order supplier. He takes away my distressful circumstances and rewards me with enjoyable circumstances. All praises to him. So this is why at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharmam prityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Abandon all your conceptions of dharma and just accept what I say. Why would Krishna, who's dharma personified, say abandon all your conceptions of dharma? Because those conceptions are false. And Krishna is establishing dharma simply means do what I say. Just like you can read in Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, devotee asking Prabhupada about sadhana bhakti, and Srila Prabhupada replies with the simplest, clearest definition of sadhana bhakti. He said, sadhana bhakti means do it because I say. Oh, that's too simplistic. That's too authoritarian. That sounds dictatorial. But Krishna is saying at the end of Bhagavad Gita, give up all your conceptions of dharma because they're not really dharma. Dharma means do what I say. So this produces an attitude in us. It can produce an attitude in us of resentment. Why does Krishna get all the pleasure? What about me? Shouldn't Krishna give me pleasure? Isn't that that should be a main priority on his list. Where is my pleasure? And because of this attitude, our envy of Krishna does not subside. We can't even see it. We're hesitating to engage fully in devotional service because we think we've got to look out for ourselves. Yes, we'll believe in Krishna, all glories, ki jai, but I've got to strive for happiness and fulfillment, mostly in my way. Mostly. We'll give a little bit of room for Krishna to do what he wants to do with our life, but mainly we've got to keep an eye out for our own happiness. This is Arjuna in chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita, expressing that attitude in the most elevated way. I was explaining at Laguna Beach Sunday that Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, is not just some kind of accessory or just some kind of introduction to Bhagavad Gita, which is not so germane, not so essential, and the real action starts in chapter 2. But no, chapter 1 is loaded with insights, loaded with significance from verse 1 to the very end. Dhritarashtra asks, Mamakam Pandavas-chaiva. What did my group, what are they going to do? My people. So he's immediately taking shelter of bodily identification. Even though the Kauravas and the Pandavas are from the same dynasty, Dhritarashtra is making a split. These bodies are closer to my body in biological makeup. Therefore, what is my party going to do, and what are the Pandavas going to do, the others? So we were explaining how this bodily conception can become more elevated. Throughout the first chapter, what does Arjuna talk about? Swajana, my people. Now Arjuna is more refined because he sees both the Kauravas and the Pandavas as one family, whereas Dhritarashtra is more crude. He's splitting the family. my people and the other people. So both are wrong. It's just that Arjuna is much more elevated in his being wrong. He's much more soft-hearted. So he constantly brings this point up in chapter 1. Swajana, our folks, our people. Our people are on both sides of the battlefield. Therefore, how can there be any victory, any true victory, when both sides are going to fight? Those who win, how can they be happy when the ones they've vanquished are related to them? Whatever I do, it's a problem. I don't see how any good can come out of this situation because of swajana. And this is why Krishna begins in the 2nd chapter by saying, you're speaking very eloquent sociology, but you are a fool. You're talking like a fool. So this is hard for people to understand because they think, Arjuna, he's so soft-hearted. He's so compassionate. He's so soft-hearted and compassionate, yes, that he's not doing what Krishna wants. And Krishna is Dharma personified. And of course, the general public may think, unless they hear from a devotee, that Bhagavad Gita is sponsoring violence. But Arjuna's occupation is to protect the innocent and stand up for justice. So Krishna is pointing out to Arjuna, you're wrong on the material platform of Varnashram Dharma, and you're wrong on the platform of internal Dharma because I want this battle, and you're my part. So in this way, we see from the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita how distortion is introduced by the bodily concept of life. And that's what's going on today. So I was explaining in Laguna Beach about, well, first of all, remember, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Trividam narakashyedam dvaram nashanam atmana. There are 3 gates to hell: lust, anger, and greed. Anyone who's interested in self-realization has to give these up. But what to do in society when you have leaders who stir up lust, anger, and greed? What can be the future of the people? So I was explaining that here's how to manipulate persons based on the bodily conception of life. First, you have to get them to identify as a bodily group. You are a this. Don't you know that? This is your essence. This is your identity. And then you get them to identify a threat to their group. This group is taking all the privileges of your group. Because of that group, you don't have as much money as you should. Because of that group, you're not as happy as you should be. So political scientists will teach you. Of course, we're presenting this through the lens of Bhagavad Gita, but political scientists will teach you. If people don't have an identifiable focus on being a particular group and can't identify a group that's threatening them, they're simply in anxiety, and you can't get any action out of persons immobilized by anxiety. Anxiety because something's not right. I don't have all the money I used to have. I don't have the social standing I used to have. My business has gone bust. I don't know why. So then you need a Kali Yuga political leader to come along and say, here's why you're feeling anxiety. It's because of those people. And then you go from anxiety to anger. And anger is known as an approach emotion in political science. It causes you to swing into action. Yes, now we understand. Let's do something about it. If you're just full of anxiety, then you don't do anything. There's no target. You can't be manipulated. You're just demobilized at a standstill. So politics means how to change anxiety into anger. And as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Trivadam Narakasyetam, one of the three gates to a hellish life and hellish situation, hellish society, is anger. But without anger, people cannot be manipulated. One famous historian said that politics is the systematic organization of anger. So you understand that based on Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita, and you see why the doorway to hellish conditions swings wide open. Based on anger, and then combine that with lust. Srila Prabhupada made a very insightful statement, as I took it. Because everything he said is very insightful, but this one really, I've been thinking about it for decades. He said, economic development is lust on an organized scale. So instead of just individual lust, you have collective lust, and that's known as economic development. And then we talked about lust, one doorway, anger, another doorway, and then there's greed. And again, that's what you see happening today. What's the motto, the Siddhanta for today? Everyone's in it for themselves. Everything is for sale. Greed is good. There'll always be unfortunate losers. There'll always be things that aren't fair. Just don't be caught with that yourself, and keep in your prayers and thoughts the problems of others, but don't do anything about it. That's the consciousness of today. Unfairness is a part of life. Face it. If you're part of the winning team, okay. If you're part of the losing team, tough luck. Our thoughts are with you. Greed is good. The rich should get richer. So here you see what Krishna predicts as the eternal problem of the conditioned soul and the societies of conditioned souls: lust, anger, and greed. The root cause is envy of Krishna. Forgetting Krishna's instructions, we establish our own dharma. And that's why Krishna at the end of Bhagavad Gita says, abandon all these dharmas that you've constructed. He's even talking about Arjuna pushing varnashram dharma to him as an excuse not to fight. So Krishna is saying, higher than anything, even my own system of varnashram dharma is the dharma of doing what I say. And when we hear that, we can feel a little envy arising in us. Why does everything have to be that what Krishna says? And because of that root cause of envy against Krishna, we then proceed to envy others. And a prominent, most offensive way of envying Krishna is to deny Krishna's transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Advaita Acharya knew this. He understood, if I'm going to stop Gauranga from treating me as his superior, because Advaita Acharya is the godbrother of the spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always treating Advaita Acharya very reverentially. And Advaita Acharya can't stand it. I want to be chastised. I want to be treated as his servant. So how is Advaita Acharya going to change the situation? He knows just what to do. He knows just how to instigate the rage of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What does he do? Teaches Mayavad philosophy on purpose to agitate Lord Chaitanya into chastising him. So Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda are floating down the Ganga to the home of Advaitacharya. They've just immediately exited the home of a very sinful person, a person who was a sensualist and a drunkard. But Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda spent some time at that home, and Lord Chaitanya was trying to instruct that person until the person offered Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya, some bliss. What was that bliss? Some intoxicating beverage. He kept saying to Nityananda, would you like some bliss? I've got some bliss. This is during prasad. And Nityananda would keep refusing him. And then, this is before Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. So then he's known as Vishvambara. Vishvambara leans over to Nityananda and says, what is about all this? What's this talk about bliss? Nityananda said, I've been around to a few holy places and there are characters like this. He wants to give us wine. Ah! Immediately, Lord Chaitanya stands up, doesn't finish his meal. His meal was not cooked, by the way. His meal was fruit and milk, because they're at the home of such a sinful person, so they didn't take his food. But hearing that alcohol is on offer, this is what the host is wanting them to take. Lord Chaitanya, followed by Nityananda, immediately jump up, wash their hands, and go jump in the Ganga with their clothes on. So now they're floating down the Ganga to Advaitacharya's house. And on the way, Lord Chaitanya is roaring, I am he! I am he! Who is this Nada, Advaitacharya, who woke me up on the ocean of milk and called me to this world to teach Dharma, and now he's spreading Mayavad philosophy. I am he! I am he! Today we will see what this Advaitacharya is really going to say. Because, in other words, I'm going to confront him. So they come out of the Ganga at Shantipur, and they enter the home of Advaitacharya, and everyone's nervous. Like, oh, look at Vishvambara. Something is up. The ladies mentally offer their obeisances and are a little fearful. Vishvambara shows the radiance of millions of suns, and then he says to Advaitacharya, tell me, what is superior, jnana or bhakti? Advaitacharya very calmly says, what is the use of bhakti without jnana? Jnana is the ultimate conclusion. Ah! Lord Chaitanya grabs him, drags him out into the courtyard, starts beating him. Beating him and beating him. And Advaitacharya's wife, Sita, is pleading with Lord Chaitanya, please, please, he's an old man. He's a brahmana. He's an old brahmana. Are you going to kill him? Nityananda is just watching all this. So after beating on Advaitacharya, Lord Chaitanya sits down in the doorway of the house and begins to exclaim, I was the one who killed Kamsa. I was the one who lifted Govardhan Hill. I was the one who deceived Bali Maharaj. I was the one who protected Prahlad and killed Hiranyakashipu. He's going on and on like this. And Advaitacharya is so happy to hear these glories. And he falls at Vishvambara's feet and says that, for so long you treated me with awe and reverence. Where is it all gone now? And Advaitacharya stands up and begins to dance in ecstasy. You treated me with such worship, and now what's happening? You just beat me. This is so wonderful. Where is your glorification of me gone now? Where's your worship of me gone now? Now I'm so happy. I am your eternal servant. So then Advaitacharya falls at the feet of Lord Chaitanya, soaks Lord Chaitanya's feet with tears, and Lord Chaitanya starts crying also, embarrassed that I beat you. And Advaitacharya is in ecstasy. You beat me, you beat me. Finally you stopped treating me as your superior. So the whole house starts crying. Nityananda crying, so many tears. Vrindavan Das Thakur describes that tears were flowing from Nityananda's eyes like rivers. And then Advaitacharya's wife and servants, they're crying. His son Achyuta is crying. Haridas Thakur falls on the ground crying. What a scene of ecstasy, tears of ecstasy. Then Lord Chaitanya tells Advaitacharya, I will give my mercy to any living entity, insect, bird, tree, or human, if they accept you. Even though they may offend me hundreds of times, if they accept you, I'll give that creature, any creature, my mercy. And what is Advaitacharya's response? That if someone says they have devotion to me, but they have no devotion to you, may their so-called devotion to me annihilate them. So this is Vishwambara's reaction to hearing Mayavad philosophy, which minimizes, disregards, extinguishes the personal existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or at best says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a contamination of Brahman. I remember being in Japan. This is around the year 2000. And one gentleman from Delhi, but he had been in Japan for quite some years. He came up to me and said, you know, there's something I don't understand. I was present at a Hindu gathering almost 30 years ago when your spiritual master, Devamrita Swami, was invited as a speaker. And that's almost 30 years ago, and I still can't understand why he did what he did. So I said, well, please tell me what happened at this Hindu gathering. He said there were various speakers, various sadhus, swamis, and your Guru Maharaj was one of them. And before it was time for him to speak, he was sitting in the audience with a small bunch of his followers, and they were listening to the speakers that would precede Srila Prabhupada. And then there was this speaker who went on and on about how the Supreme Absolute Truth has no form, no personality, no eyes, no arms, no legs. And actually, even before that speaker, the other speakers were speaking not so flagrantly, but were expounding impersonalism. And devotees told me when I asked them about it, Prabhupada was getting edgy. So then this most flagrant Mayavadi starts to speak. No form, no legs, no arms, no eyes, no personality. And Prabhupada couldn't take it anymore. He mentioned to the devotees, get on the stage and make a kirtan. So they disrupted the guy's talk. They jumped up on the stage with wampers and kartals and mridangas. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Why did Prabhupada do that? This gentleman couldn't understand. That's not what a sadhu does. A sadhu accepts everything and sees the oneness in everything. He didn't understand Srila Prabhupada's pure love. Prabhupada couldn't tolerate hearing his beloved minimized, being described as having no form, no personality. So you may think, well, still, shouldn't he have just been tolerant and just controlled himself? But suppose someone, put yourself sort of in those shoes. Suppose someone dear to you, like your mother or your wife or your child, was being publicly blasphemed. Can you just sit there and, well, everything should be tolerant and calm and oneness? You'd have to do something. You'd probably have to leave the room, or you want to grab the person and choke him. So Prabhupada's response was one of pure love. He can't stand to see the envy coming from someone who is totally ignorant of Krishna and describing Krishna as having no personality, no form, no activities. Now before Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda arrived at the home of Advaitacharya, to straighten out Advaitacharya, before they floated down the Ganga to Shantipur, as we said, they were at this home of a very degraded person posing as a sannyasi, a tantric so-called sannyasi, who was living with a woman and was drinking alcohol, as was found out later. But Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they walked by and saw the house, and Lord Chaitanya asked Nityananda, whose house is that? As if he doesn't know. Nityananda replies, it's a tantric sannyasi. Lord Chaitanya says, let's go inside and see Goswami. So they went inside, and this is before Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. Nityananda at that point was dressed like a sannyasi. So they pay their obeisances to the so-called Goswami, and the so-called Goswami is so fascinated by the effulgence, the beauty of the limbs of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And so the tantric sannyasi decides to give a benediction to Vishwambar. May you have wealth. May you have a good wife. May you have many children. And Vishwambar looks at him and says, Goswami? What kind of benediction is that? If you're a true Goswami, the only benediction you should give is that, may Krishna be merciful to me. So the tantric sannyasi's reaction was, just see, this is the way of the age of Kali. You give someone a benediction for a nice wife, nice children, and wealth, and they don't appreciate, they even criticize you. Just see. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur paraphrases the so-called Goswami as saying, this is the way of the age of Kali. My benedictions are not appreciated. I've heard about this happening. Now I'm witnessing it myself. Just see. And so then Lord Chaitanya tried to explain, tried to preach to him that, look, the only real benediction is devotional service. And the so-called Goswami replied, well, how does bhakti fill your belly? You need, in this world, you need your belly filled, and what's wrong with enjoying sensuality? How can you live without that? That's part of life. You've got to eat. You've got to enjoy your senses. So then Vishwambar replied that your eatables will come to you because of your karma in the right amount. You don't have to endeavor for your eatables as the goal of life. Just like as soon as a child appears from the womb of the mother, milk is coming from the mother's breast. How do you explain that? Lord Chaitanya asked him. Furthermore, you say that it's just natural to enjoy sensuality. It's natural to have wealth. It's natural to have comforts. If it's so natural, why do you, at the time of death, lose it all? How natural is that? Furthermore, Vishwambar explained, you don't pray to have a fever, but a fever still comes. This shows you that your happiness and distress is already prepackaged. You get things that you didn't ask for, and this shows you that your happiness and distress is out of your control in this lifetime. What was the Goswami's response to this lesson, key lesson in reality? Oh, I have been to so many holy places. I have toured the holy places, Hardwar, Kashi, here, there, everywhere. In my tours of so many holy places, I've talked to so many intellectuals. And now I have to submit to hearing this young boy teach me. Now I have to submit to this young boy who's still drinking milk from his mother's breast, and he's going to instruct me. Then the Goswami, the so-called Goswami, had an idea. Who is that with him, dressed as a sannyasi? I think it's the fault of this sannyasi. He's referring to Nityananda. Nityananda has bewildered this young boy, and that's why this young boy is speaking like this. Nityananda replies, "Please, Goswami, forgive this young boy. Forgive his offenses. I know your glories." Immediately the tantric sannyasi calmed down. Oh, he recognizes my glories. And then he invited Nityananda and Vishwambar, "Please, take lunch." Nityananda said, "No, we've got to go somewhere. We've got to move on. Please, take lunch, take rest after you take a bath." So Nityananda and Chaitanya remembered their mission to deliver the most fallen. So they took bath in the Ganga, came back with some milk and fruit, and were honoring that. And that's when the tantric sannyasi started offering them wine. And at that point, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda exited and jumped into the Ganga, floating down to the house of Advaitacharya to deal with Advaitacharya. But Vrindavan Das Thakur makes the point that just see, Lord Chaitanya, in pursuance of delivering the fallen souls, would spend time at the house of this degraded so-called sannyasi who is a sensualist and a drunkard, but he shows no mercy to anyone preaching Mayavad philosophy. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains in the purport that it's one thing to engage in sinful activity. It's another category, blasphemy. And Mayavad philosophy is blasphemy of Krishna. You can counteract sinful activity by punya, by pious activities, but offenses to the Supreme Personality of God and his devotee are in a different category. So Lord Chaitanya is showing that I can tolerate this sinful person and try to deliver him, but I will show no tolerance for those who deny the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord, who publicly are on this defamation campaign. There's no mercy. That tantric sannyasi, Vrindavan Das Thakur said, won't get perfection in this lifetime, but in the next lifetime. Whereas an offender who is envious of Krishna and attacks Krishna as having no form, no personality, no qualities, who can say when they'll be delivered? So in this way, Lord Chaitanya went from showing mercy to a very sinful person to showing no mercy to Advaitacharya. And then it's pointed out, one final point, that when Lord Chaitanya visited Kashi, the headquarters of the Mayavadi sannyasis, he refused to associate with them. And in fact, he left Kashi on a day that was supposed to be very sacred for Vedantists, for Vedantic sannyasis, a day during Chaturmasya, the only day that they could shave. So they revered that date very much The followers of Shankaracharya revered it very much, but Lord Chaitanya left Kashi before that date. And so the Mayavadi sannyasis took this as great offense. He's one of us. He won't associate with us. He's not cooperating with us. Yet, what does Lord Chaitanya do? He spends time at the home of this degraded tantric, preaching to him. But in Kashi, with the erudite, aristocratic, austere Mayavadi sannyasis, he left town. He wouldn't associate with them. Of course, later, as you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, because the devotees pleaded with him, Lord Chaitanya went and delivered Prakashananda Saraswati and the Mayavadi sannyasis. Because the devotees pleaded, we can't tolerate hearing their blasphemy. It's so painful to our ears. Please do something about it. So here you can understand the effects of envy of Krishna. It makes it so that even Mahaprabhu will think twice about delivering a Mayavadi envious person, whereas he'll spend time with a drunkard or sensualist. So this shows you the root problem. Envy, iccha dvesha samutena, desire to imitate Krishna, therefore envy, and aversion to following Krishna's instructions. Hare Krishna. Any questions?
Thank you, Gurudev, for the class. My question is how we can take shelter of the Panchatattva in sharing and spreading Krishna consciousness.
Understand that the Panchatattva broke open the seal, as Kaviraj Goswami said. When Krishna came, the seal on the container of love of Krishna was intact. Krishna just demonstrated his Braj Leela. That's why he left Mathura to go to Vrindavan, to expand the loving affairs. But he didn't distribute love of Krishna. But as Chaitanya Charitamrita points out, Krishna was thinking, for a long time I haven't distributed love of Krishna. So he comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Panchatattva. They break the seal, distribute the contents. The more they drink of the contents, the more their thirst grows. The Krishna Trishna, the thirst for Krishna grows more and more, the more they drink of it. And the more they dance, by their dancing it makes it easier to be Krishna conscious. And by their activities, the Panchatattva causes the seed of material enjoyment to become inert, to become inactive. So yes, they didn't pay attention, as we heard yesterday, to who is qualified, not qualified. Yet and still, Mahaprabhu was very careful and hesitant to deal with those who deny the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna, calling them material.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the nice class and elaborating on this pastime. So with the Mayavad philosophy from non-devotees, it's clear that Mahaprabhu completely ignores them. But with devotees who maybe are affected by Mayavad philosophy, maybe they're not pure devotees, he doesn't ignore it, and he instead channels a lot of his whatever emotion, anger in this case. So is that an instruction?
Advaitacharya, he's the one who called for Lord Chaitanya to appear. This is what Lord Chaitanya was stressing. You brought me here on this mission, and now look what you're doing. A special case. I was doing fine, relaxing on the ocean of milk, laying on Anantanag. And you woke me up and told me, come to the material world because things are too degraded. I came, and now what are you doing? You're teaching Mayava.
I guess the question would be, let's say someone who's practicing a devotee, a bhakta, and they're chanting Hare Krishna, and maybe they get affected by, Mayavad philosophy, which is very pervasive in the West.
And in the East.
And East, and we're here in the West. As devotees, how should we react? Should we start to ignore them, or should we start to...
This is why we have a daily program of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. If you're constantly in contact with Srila Prabhupada's books, you're being cleansed of those impersonalistic tendencies. Your intelligence is becoming purified. So in your brahmacharya ashram, make sure there is adequate reading of Srila Prabhupada's books. Otherwise, the intelligence will risk becoming mundane. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for a very nice class. So you taught in part of your class, you did some analysis in politics in the outside world. Yeah. So my question to you is how the devotee should be involved in politics, should be or should not be involved in politics.
We should always remember what is the effective way for welfare work, and that is distributing the message of Lord Chaitanya. If you can utilize something in Krishna's service, go ahead, but make sure it can be used in Krishna's service, and that's best done under guidance. Because we may say, oh, this is all for Krishna. You've heard that before, right? Krishna, it must be Krishna's telling me to do this. We need guidance. Just like when the In God We Trust party back in Prabhupada's time with us got a bit off the rails, Prabhupada reined it in. All right, enough of that. At first he was very enthusiastic, but he saw that he heard that devotees were staying up late at night, weren't going to Mangalarti, they're getting too caught up. Prabhupada reeled in the situation. He said, that's enough of that. So we always need that kind of guidance. It's true, everything can be used in Krishna's service. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that yukta vairagya is actually a very mystical conception. It's not something cheap. Just use everything in Krishna's service, Prabhu. Everything belongs to Krishna. Use it. Use this. Use that. We may say that superficially, but yukta vairagya is actually a very deep mystical principle. And that means it requires guidance. So everything can be used in Krishna's service. Politics, sociology, this or that. But you have to be careful not to become covered by the modes of material nature. And therefore guidance and association is very important. I remember on Watsika Avenue in the year 1976, I was standing outside the BBT building where I lived, and one devotee from the Sanskrit department was telling me how he's prepared to go out into the world and do his own thing. He said, just like how Krishna did to the Keshi demon, Krishna stuck his fist deep down the throat of the Keshi demon. Similarly, we're going to go into the throat of Maya and transform Maya from the inside. He didn't last long, unfortunately. So we have to be careful about our material association. This is becoming a controversial point amongst devotees. Lord Chaitanya said the first symptom of a Vaishnava is to reject the association of those who are not devotees. How do you do that without being called a cultist? But we can't deny that's the first principle of Lord Chaitanya's recognition of a devotee. Asat Sango Chag, a Vaishnava Char. The Achar, the behavior of a Vaishnava, is that he rejects the association of the Asat. How to do that in an appropriate way? is a controversial point these days. Some say just dive in all the way and that will impress people. Others say stay away, stay completely back. Anything else? Any words of wisdom from Jutakarma Prabhu? Yes, he's signaling.
I had a question. I was letting the others ask their questions, and if there was a little time, I thought I'd ask mine. You were speaking about envy of Krishna, envy of devotees, but there's one purport where Srila Prabhupada talks about envy of the self. You know, like they said, the demons or the asuras are actually envious of their own selves. Can you shed any light on a statement like that?
I hate that I'm spirit, soul, and part of Krishna. Like one infamous philosopher said, I feel so depressed living in a universe that I didn't create. So similarly, I hate that I'm a spirit, soul, part of Krishna. In the, what is it, 9th canto, you hear from Hiranyakashipu, who he's speaking knowledge of Atma Tattva, that we're spirit, soul, but he refuses to take it further than that. The Acharyas explain, Hiranyakashipu recognizes that there's Vishnu, but he thinks of Vishnu in a material conception, that Vishnu is just like a little child that the demigods play with by offering him sweets. So this self-envy means harm your own existence because you can't stand being a spirit soul, a part of Krishna. Just like this philosopher said, I can't stand being in a universe that I didn't create. Last question.
Hare Krishna. By the grace of Krishna, I found myself in this beautiful temple.
Welcome.
Thank you. I am relating to this teaching so much, and I told myself I will be a spiritual person and go get a job and prove that I can be a good servant and citizen while being fully spiritual, and very quickly I was led astray and immersed among people who constantly are leading away from the ways of Krishna and Krishna consciousness, and I reached such a point of tiredness with being in swarms of this way of life because it offends my spirit, and so it's something I am trying to understand as well, how to not have my own consciousness defiled by being in the presence of other people full of these.
You come just as you've come today and associate with those who will elevate you, not degrade you. You are whom you associate with. So yes, you have to work probably, but associate with devotees of Krishna and you'll be protected against material influences. You'll learn how to live a lifestyle that's favorable for your spiritual development.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming, and we hope to see you progress in bhakti. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you.